Evening, everyone. This is Tom Miller, and I'm so excited to be live with you from Orlando, Florida, here at the John Maxwell International Maxwell certification. This is my fifth session that I've had the opportunity to go to since I joined the John Maxwell in 2014. So I just wanted to kind of, we had a think tank day yesterday with our faculty. And then today was day one of the first session. We had John Maxwell and Seth Godin as well drop some huge golden nuggets on us. So I've got some notes here, just some initial thoughts. But I've been reading John's new book called No Limits, and it's all about building capacity. And there's this great story that I'm going to write about this week in my blog about capacity. There's this great story from the book Living with a Seal. Jesse Acertus, I believe is his last name, and he talks about how that when your brain tells you to stop, you've really only utilized about maybe 60%, somewhere between 40 and 60% of your actual capacity. So John starts to tell same story in his first chapter of No Limits, and I love it because I was listening to a podcast the other day with Jesse telling the story about the seal, and if you haven't read or listened to the book Living with the Seal, I highly recommend it. But he had this seal live with him, and he realized that every exercise or everything that Jesse did in his life, he was leaving at least 40% on the table. 40% in terms of his overall capacity to be successful. So it's a great story, really funny when he's doing pull-ups, and after he does about 20 in the first 10 minutes, he says, "That's it, I'm done, I can't do any more." And Seal says to him, "No, that's okay, we're not leaving until you do 100 more." And he actually did them. It took him an hour, but he did all 100. And so he just realized that he was leaving so much on the table. So it really got me thinking. I was running, and I had a 23-mile run, and man, I mean, I don't know what I've ever done anything at 100% capacity. I can't think of anything, and that I'm 40 years old, and that concerns me. Right? It concerns me because I have to learn how to be more intentional and more focused on what's most important. So John, right, and my mentor Paul Martinelli started talking about how most of us live the majority of our time in the unconscious. So take, for example, when you're driving a car 70, 80 miles an hour down the highway, you've done it so many times that you're just, like unconsciously moving forward. But for some reason, when you slow down to 10 miles an hour to either turn or park, you're like, no, quiet, I have to think now, right? So just, so many people live their lives in the unconscious, right? And the only way you're going to get better tomorrow is by working harder today. And the pain is not trying harder or trying new things or doing something different. The pain is releasing those attachments, right? Those things that you're attached to, those self-limiting beliefs, those competing commitments, whatever it is, that gremlin on your shoulder telling you that you can't do a great job. So I really know that's a big factor in my inability to hit my capacity. So it's definitely something I'm taking away on these first couple of days, is building an action plan towards growing towards my capacity. Another thing I've been thinking about a lot lately is I have two lovely children by my beautiful wife Jennifer, and my son is 4 and my daughter Devin is 9. And Devin is she's so smart and inquisitive and curious, and she's got a lot of me in her. The smart is not for me, the hard working aspect of me, and she likes to kind of just get things done. But I don't remember being so aware when Devin was 4 that I am of Matthew, in terms of just paying attention to him, more like intimacy, in the sense of just, just one-on-one time. And so John said, time is a wonderful way of showing you what matters. time is a wonderful way to showing you what matters. I think about that 5 years, that 5-year difference, right, between your first and your second child, because typically, you know, your first child gets all the attention and your second gets little attention, and but I don't necessarily see that the case. So I always, one of the things I wrote that action plan getting out of here is being more intentional with my older daughter, and making sure that I don't let these really key years slip away from her. So my third point, so I've already talked about capacity building, I've talked about time and being present, and the third big golden nugget so far from the first couple of days is this is huge, so listen carefully. When someone who's average tries to talk you out of doing something, you can be rest assured that you're probably on the right track. So let me say that again. When somebody who's of the more average level, or maybe not as successful as you are, is trying to talk you out of doing something, you're probably on the right track of something big. We all have those people in our lives. I remember when I started our consulting, coaching, and training company, as I was leaving a very comfortable job with the North Carolina Department of Public Education. There was many people who said, "Are you sure you want to do this?" You know, there were some people who talked about drinking the Kool-Aid and things like that, So now I think back on it with that quote: when someone of average tries to talk you out of doing something, you're on the right track. Because why is that, right? Because people will root for you, but they don't necessarily want you to be successful because you're doing something outside the box, right? You're doing something outside of the norm. You're doing something that can takes their self-reflection, or their own internal reflection about themselves to a deeper level, right? So you have to give up the right to care what other people think of you. That's a really difficult thing, and I am an I personality on the DISC scale, so I have a really hard time with anybody that I think that I've either disappointed or so that's a real challenging aspect for me, to give up the right to care what other people think of me. So last one, yes. So great point, Emily. Emily just said I have to drop all these average friends. Yeah, you have to get a new class, right? When you're at the head of the class, it's time to find a new class, and you've got to leave some people behind, and that's okay. It's nothing personal. It's just that you want better for yourself, and you know what you're capable of, right? So the great story about the crabs in the bucket. If you've ever gone crabbing before, you reach in to get the crabs in a bucket, you pull out one crab, and what happens? You actually bring up 9 or 10 other crabs, right? Because they're all grabbing onto each other, pulling each other down back into the bucket, right? That's just one story. There's these scientific studies about, monkeys won't, they have taught each other not to go after the food in the basket because it's dangerous, even though none of the monkeys that were in the actual cage had actually seen anybody get hurt. It was just that they were reacting from everything before, right? So you've got to, don't be afraid to step outside. And yes, so a lot of people are afraid of the F word, failure. That's how we learn. We only learn from our failures, right? So you try, right? You test. Let's call it testing. You you check, right? So the plan, do, check, act, right? So from that, so plan, you come up with your plan. You step up to the intentionality line, and you do it. And whether or not you get there or not, that's your check. And if it doesn't go well, then you assess. Okay, what do I need to do differently? And then you still navigate in that same direction. If you're not failing, you're not trying. So very, very challenging. And I see this other comment on here. Being around achievers makes me feel inadequate sometimes. That's something that you should never do. Nobody should ever make you feel inadequate because that's your own internal gremlin. So absolutely, you got to cut that off right now. right? You need to surround yourself with like-minded people who can complete you as part of your team, but you also need to surround yourself with where you want to be. Because if you want to be more, you have to see more. And you have to put yourself in a visionary stance of that's where I want to be, right? And you learn from that person, and you ask that person questions, and you value that person's feedback. And when they give you feedback, you don't say, oh, that won't work for me. You do it. You try it. You try it, and you try it with consistency. So doing the right things daily is how you're going to be successful, right? The law of sacrifice, sacrificing the right things. Anything worthwhile is uphill, so you can't get uphill if you have downhill habits. So doing the right thing daily is very, very important in identifying what those are. Let me just pull my note card here, see if I've got a couple more. I love this one that I heard today. It was from one of our John Maxwell team fellow members, and she said, "Don't mock the pain that you have yet to endure or you've not endured." Right. So a lot of us were very judgmental, and we don't know where other people have been. Right. So remember, leadership is about getting off your own agenda onto someone else's. So when she said, "Don't mock the pain that you have not endured," that was really powerful for me, especially working with some lower performing schools. Sometimes we're very quick to judge why they're low performing, and we immediately, leadership, teachers are ill equipped. I mean, whatever it is, we can run off a million reasons, but we shouldn't mock it because we don't know what they've been through to get there, right? We don't know. So and then on the other side, you have to suspend the requirement for knowing how to do everything. And these are those types of people that plan, and never act. You don't have to know how to do everything. Dr. Martin Luther King said, you don't need to see the entire flight of stairs to get to the second level. You just need to see the next step. And I think that's one thing that's been very clear to me, is where we have to do a better job as a consulting, coaching, and teaching company of teaching people that you don't have to know how. Right? There's a million ways to get there. You don't have to know which one's going to work right now, but you have to try something to be able to get to that next level. So when things are not working, you have to look for the fear, right? And the best antidote to fear is creativity. Right, so just try different ways. Go to other schools or go to other organizations and visit. So just really, really great stuff here. But I'll just end with this. Everything worthwhile is uphill. So from this, we're going to launch 2 mastermind groups coming up in April. One is on John Maxwell's book, Intentional Living, and the other is on John's book, No Limits, which is about reaching capacity. So more information will be coming out about that. I'm getting signed books, so if you're interested, message me. The first 10 folks who join into our mastermind groups of either of those 2 will be getting a signed copy of those books directly from John. So this has been a lot of fun. I'm glad a lot of people stayed on. Hopefully it was valuable. Go back and listen to it again, and be looking for more information either on our website or through our blogs. Have an intentional night, everybody. So one great thing to do if you want to make tomorrow better by getting better now, in your last couple of hours here of your evening, instead of rewatching sports highlights on ESPN or going through a binge of watching television, open up a book or write down a list of questions, or anything that you can get better. Questions for your mentor. Read an article, read a book, pull up some YouTube videos. There's so much information out there, and I'll tell you, Seth Godin, if you have not heard or read any of his work, he blew my mind today. I've not read any of his stuff. And I can't wait to start digging into more of his stuff. So Seth Godin and/or any John Maxwell material, obviously, or you can catch us on our own YouTube page and you can watch some of our other content. So thanks everybody. Have a great night.